Gaming has been one of the most important parts of my life ever since I was a little 5-year-old boy receiving a Game Boy Advance on Christmas Day, and ever since I've never broken my Nintendo chain. Nintendo is still my favorite developer even after all these newfangled devices that Sony and Microsoft are throwing out. There is still something so awesome and beautiful about how Nintendo creates things that truly come from heart and effort to please their fans. Another amazing thing about Nintendo is their stellar franchises. Things that come to mind are Mario, Metroid, and Kirby, but my favorite franchise from Nintendo and my favorite franchise from all the video games is The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda is extremely important to me, and so many others, and to pay homage to the grand series, I have compiled the top 5 Zelda games that rest in a 3D environment. The reason I'm only including the 3D installments of the series on this list is because I was introduced to the series in that fashion, and honestly I just find more enjoyment in the 3D Zelda games than the 2D ones. So without further delay, let's start this list. I'm starting off this list with a game that I honestly was not a fan of. Of course it had some amazing parts like the time stone, the collector's box fight, and the sand ship, but all of it was hindered by being way too easy throughout the game. The dungeons were very straightforward, and Fee was always constantly telling you exactly what to do. I know a lot of people are gonna hate me for saying this, but I honestly think that this is the worst Zelda game to date, excluding the CDI disasters. It's not that it's a bad game, it's just way too easy for Zelda standards. One of the important parts about Zelda games is their sense of exploration and being non-linear, but Skyward Sword just holds your hand throughout the entire game, which in my mind is just not okay. Now I'll talk about what I actually liked about the game. The side quests were fun and interesting. One of the ones that comes to mind is the Kalin's love letter story. I think that in all newer Zelda games there should be more side quests like this that can have multiple endings. Another thing that Nintendo did right was the soundtrack. While most of the songs aren't that memorable, there are still some extremely well orchestrated songs, like Fee's Goodbye and Ballad of the Goddess. Other than those good points and bad points, Skyward Sword's inclusion of the one-on-one motion controls are the one thing that I'm neutral about. They were fun when they worked, but they suffered from being very unreliable most of the time. I really hope they don't go with the control scheme for the next entry in the series. And last, it boggles my mind that Nintendo left out the 2 features from Twilight Princess that pretty much made the game for me. Being able to swing your sword and run at the same time, and fairies not healing you with full health. Why on earth would they remove those? When I was 8, I bought this game thinking that The Legend of Zelda was just an action-adventure game where you walk around the levels and kill monsters, but boy was I wrong. I brought it home and played it for about an hour, and I couldn't get past the beginning because I was so confused. I still hate the beginning to this day, but back then I was stuck. I hated it. I hated The Legend of Zelda. But 2 years later, I got to play Ocarina of Time on the Virtual Console. I actually got it this time. I beat it without a walkthrough, and instantly The Legend of Zelda was one of my favorite franchises. I played about 4 more of the games, but then I had to face my old adversary, the one that haunted me over the hard 2 years, Twilight Princess. I bought the game at a used books and movies store for about $15, and it was laughably easy compared to the ones I played before it. The great thing about Twilight Princess is the little things that the other games got wrong, like the running while swinging your sword, the horseback combat, and the fairies that don't heal you when you have full health, so you can pack it in a bottle for later use. Another thing I like is the inclusion of Wolf, Link, and Midna, which are used for many intricate puzzles and used for tracking down bugs in the Twilight realm. Most of the bosses are really good, besides Morpheal and Zant. My favorite boss in the game is Stalord, which is the boss of one of the best dungeons in the entire series, Arbiter's Grounds. Most of the dungeons are good too. The only ones I actually hated were the water and sky dungeons. Both were extremely cryptic and boring. but I loved the design and actual look of the water dungeon. Other than that, it tried way too hard to be dark, and I've never really cared about the actual look of the Link character in this game. Other than that, it was a masterpiece that should be experienced by anybody who has a Wii or a GameCube. I can't say much about Majora's Mask. It is one of the most beautiful, imaginative video games that have ever been created and provides some of the best moments in gameplay mechanics in any Zelda game. My favorite thing about this game were the masks. Each mask was well designed and had their own specific purpose. There was 3 transformation masks: the Zora mask, the Deku mask, and the Goron mask. The Zora mask lets you swim around quickly and shoots boomerangs out of your arm. The Deku mask lets you glide, shoot bubbles, and spin around. And the Goron mask lets you roll around and lift heavy objects. My favorite mask is the bunny ears because they let you run almost 2 times faster than usual, making running around the huge world less tedious. One of my favorite parts about Majora's Mask is the focus on an in-depth, creepy, and atmospheric story, which newer Zelda games should follow. The dungeons in this installment are great, the best being the Stone Tower Temple and the worst being the Great Bay Temple. I think that this game has the second best boss battles in the series. All of them were enjoyable, and the only one that I think really tested my patience was Jorg, because of his unpredictable attacks. I think where this game really shines is everything else you do outside of the main story. The side quests in this game are amazing and memorable, like the cafe story and the bomb thief. The story is amazing. The plot revolves around the Skull Kid and his mask that he stole from a mask salesman, and his plot to pull down the moon and destroy Termina, and Link has 3 days to unleash the 3 giants to hold up the moon. It is by far the most twisted and depressing stories in gaming. To know that everyone around you only has 3 days to live unless you save them, that is truly powerful. We now arrive at the most nostalgic game in the series for me. If you ask me which Zelda game I played first, I would say Ocarina of Time, despite me playing Twilight Princess 2 years earlier. The reason why is because this is the first Zelda game that I truly enjoyed and took a part in. This game is absolute perfect experience from beginning to end. Being the most critically acclaimed video game that's ever been created, you would think it would be. When this game was announced, nobody had a clue how Nintendo would pull off a Zelda game in a 3D environment, and now it's a console Zelda standard. In the beginning, you're just a little fairy boy in the Kokiri Forest, and at the end you're the hero of Hyrule, and the standard for heroes before and after. This game developed a ton of future game mechanics, such as Z-targeting, first-person aiming, non-linear dungeons, and more. The dungeons are absolutely amazing in this installment. The first 3 are just tutorials that get you ready for the real hardcore dungeons. My favorite are the Forest Temple and the Spirit Temple, while some of the lesser ones, like the Fire Temple and the Water Temple, that I didn't enjoy much. The bosses are by far the best in the series. All of them were fun and unique in their own way, the best being Phantom Ganon and Ganondorf, while the others like Goma and Giant Dodongo were okay, but lacking in challenge or uniqueness. There were also some really amazing side quests like the Mask Quest and the Big Goron Sword Quest. Only one other game in the series could possibly beat it. It is extremely hard to actually talk about this game. There is so much to cover in a little amount of time. The Wind Waker is a true masterpiece from start to finish. I can't find anything about this game that is flawed in any way. The game starts off on Outset Island, where we're giving a brief introduction to some of the main plot points. It is very peaceful, but then an evil bird comes and takes away the little pirate girl named Tetra. When you save her, your little sister gets kidnapped. After Tetra takes you to the Forsaken Fortress and you sneak your way up to the top, you get your first glance on the resurrected evil King Ganon. After you wipe out into the ocean, you are saved by the King of Red Lions, your boat companion, who tells you that you need 3 goddess pearls to awaken the goddesses. After you collect the pearls, you get to face the giant Tower of the Gods. After that, you dive into Old Hyrule, where you find the Master Sword. After pulling the Master Sword from the pedestal, it breaks the seal on Ganon and his minions. This is when the adventure truly begins. After this, you must awaken the Master Sword and slay Ganon. This game is actually the one that I beat recently on the Wii U, and I was blown away from start to finish. The controls were superb, the action was perfected, and all of the items were well implemented and fun. In this Zelda game, it seems that it is the first time that all of the items were used a lot during the game, even outside of the dungeons. For example, to get some of the Great Fairy upgrades, you need the bombs and the skull hammer. With the bow, you need to shoot down the wind god when you get stuck in a cyclone. The dungeons in this game were my favorite set in the series. While not all of them were memorable, they were all very satisfying and fun. My favorites were the Tower of the Gods and the Earth Temple. I didn't like the Wind Temple, but it served as by far the best challenge in the entire game. All of the bosses were good. They always used the dungeon's weapon very well, and I enjoyed all of them. Some of the cooler ones were Goma and Jalhalla. This is the first game in the entire series that made me actually care about Link as a character. That is mostly due to the amazing new art style. They used the art style to their advantage by giving everybody a great body language and emotion, which is absolutely perfect for this type of game. The best part about this game is the exploration on the boat. The Great Sea is huge and has tons of unique islands to explore. Thanks for watching my top 10 3D Zelda games. Please subscribe and tell me how I can improve in later videos. Remember to play the Wind Waker if you have a chance, preferably the Wii U remake, which had improved graphics and controls. Goodbye!